Snow fell silently over Kiev that morning, blanketing the war-torn city in a fragile, fleeting purity. Into this silence came the sound of a plane, steady, foreign, purposeful. It landed on a military airstrip under heavy guard, not an ally, not an enemy, something far more ambiguous. Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso, had arrived in the heart of a war he did not fight, but which echoed his own. He stepped down from the aircraft in full military attire, uncompromising, austere. He did not smile. He never did when war was involved. Volodymyr Zelensky waited for him on the tarmac, shoulders squared under his winter coat. His face bore the fatigue of a man carrying a nation. As their eyes met, the snow thickened. Two leaders from two continents bound by two different wars, neither of them looking away. Their handshake was brief, tense, the beginning of a conversation the world would never fully hear. Inside the presidential palace, the temperature did not rise. Marble walls and towering ceilings gave the illusion of permanence, but the air held the same fragility as the world beyond it. Maps were unrolled, charts revealed. Ukraine's war laid bare in lines and numbers, troop movements, occupied territories, lost infrastructure. Screens flickered with satellite imagery and casualty reports. Traoré stood silent, unimpressed by technology, unmoved by numbers. He had seen death in dust, in scorched villages no satellite cared to track. His war didn't come in high definition. It came in machetes, in AK-47s handed to 12-year-olds. Zelensky spoke of sovereignty, resistance, of the Russian bear clawing at the gates. Traoré, though silent, carried his own truths, of foreign soldiers wearing smiles, of deals made without consent, of natural resources guarded by mercenaries rather than governments. In Burkina Faso, he had buried the illusion of neutrality. He had come to Kiev not to listen, but to be heard. The hours passed, the tension thickened, delegates shifted in their seats. Between military terms and diplomatic jargon, an invisible battle unfolded, not of bullets, but of memories, of whose pain mattered more. Traoré carried the weight of decades of colonial residue, Western flags flying above African soil in the name of peace, while militants tore through towns unchecked. Aid offered with one hand, weapons sold with the other. Burkina Faso had been taught to suffer silently. He refused that silence now. Zelensky, meanwhile, lived under siege. Bombs falling, cities reduced to rubble, allies growing colder with each month. He believed in global solidarity, but Traoré had long stopped believing. Two leaders, two battles, one world order that had chosen which war deserved its tears. The room, ornate and timeless, felt out of place. There were no words, just the hum of distant sirens, the scratch of a pen across a leather-bound notebook, and the silent negotiation of two men who had nothing to offer, except their truths. Traoré thought of the mothers in Dori, burying children without coffins, of forests turned into mass graves, of French soldiers stationed near gold mines, but never near the schools when the attacks came. Zelensky thought of Bucha, of mass graves under snow, of children speaking in whispers so the drones wouldn't hear. There was a connection, but not unity, only recognition. Later they stood on the palace terrace. The city blinked beneath them, fragile and defiant. Wind tore through the silence, but neither man flinched. Traoré stared into the distance, not toward Moscow, nor Washington, but somewhere deeper. Somewhere his people cried alone. In that moment, words would have failed them. What passed between them was not dialogue. It was history observing itself. They were not friends, not foes, but each had found something in the other, a reflection of what power demands of the wounded. At dawn, the protocol resumed. Guards stood straighter, cameras flashed again. The visit was ending. No joint statement, no photo signed in gold ink. Just another cold morning in Kiev. Traoré departed with no promises, no weapons, no alliance. But he had said what needed to be said without uttering a word. He had reminded the world, the African continent does not exist only to observe. It bleeds, it speaks, it remembers. And Zelensky, for all his weariness, knew he had not welcomed a subordinate, but a storm. In the West, the visit was barely mentioned. Symbolic, some called it. Irrelevant,
Others whispered behind closed doors. But in Ouagadougou, in Bamako, in Niamey, something shifted. The line had been crossed, not of borders, but of silence. For once, Africa had stepped into someone else's war and said, "We will not be instruments. We will not fight your battles while ours go unnoticed." And in Kiev, despite the snow, the wind, the war, Zelensky remembered the look in Traore's eyes, that refusal, that rage. There would be no pact. Empire will tremble,